Hi, welcome everyone. I'm going to talk about AMP and what you can do with AMP. So maybe a few words about myself. My name is Sebastian Benz. I'm a developer advocate at Google. I work with AMP, and I've been working with quite a few companies, helping them build better AMP pages. I'm also running ampbyexample.com, which is a website showcasing AMP and what is possible with it. And today I'm going to give you a quick introduction into AMP and to accelerated mobile pages, which is the official name, and want to demonstrate what's possible if you really push the limits. Just at the beginning, a quick question like, who of you knows AMP? Okay, that's pretty good. And who has already implemented an AMP page? One person, that's perfect, because what I'm telling you is like, so it's going to be new for everyone. So it's not going to be boring. At least I hope that. Okay, so let's get started. So Accelerate the Mobile Page is a project that started maybe, I think it was almost 1.5 years ago. And the idea is to make it possible or make it quite easy to create fast websites or web pages. And one aspect of this is to make it really efficient to embed web pages into different content. For example, like one application which you might have seen is that we surface AMP pages inside the Google search results. And the way it works is there are like 3 core components around AMP. The first one is AMP HTML. It's basically a subset of normal HTML plus some custom web components. Then there's a custom JavaScript runtime, and there's a third bit that's an AMP cache, which kind of optimizes the way how AMP pages are served. And let's have a quick look at how this can look in practice. So this is just like one demo on how you could use AMP or how we use it at Google. But like one important thing to know about AMP is that it's not really a Google product. It's actually an open source product. So you can go to GitHub under amp-project/amp-html, and you can find the source code for all of the runtime online. And it's grown into a really active community. And we are happy about everyone who wants to help us out, like by requesting new features, providing bug fixes, or implementing new features. So in Google search, like if you search for a term which is, I'm going to use Brexit because this shows lots of news articles. So if you go through the search results, and you will notice that some of the search results have a little lightning bolt icon with AMP written beside it. And if you click on the news article, you will see it loads instantly. And if you're like used to how websites usually work, this is a lot faster than what's normal. So it's actually has grown into a problem that websites has become bigger and bigger, embedding more JavaScript, more tracking libraries, so that it quite often takes more than 5 seconds to load a single page. And so this is one example. So you have a normal search results which renders AMP. Here's a different sample. So here we have a carousel showing several AMP articles. So you click on one, again it loads almost instantly, and you can swipe through the different articles. So you see while you're swiping through it, it's the next article is instantly there. And this is shown to be a really, really great thing, because we've seen that user engagement is a lot higher if websites load fast. And in order to get this work, basically all these three components I mentioned have to work together, like AMP HTML, the AMP runtime, and the AMP cache. So let's start with the last bit. This is the AMP cache. In order to make such an experience work, we cannot serve the page from the publisher's origin, but instead we serve it from a cache which does some performance optimizations. But it also enables, like, one of the secrets why AMPs are so fast, that it makes it possible to pre-render pages. And because it's built into the AMP runtime, the pre-rendering of the page is really efficient. So it only pre-renders the bits that are required to display the first part of the page. So it doesn't need to download the whole page, but only basically the things that are shown in the first viewport. And the other thing that is important to know is that the AMP pages are displayed in a so-called AMP viewer, which you see here at the top. So it displays the origin of the original publisher, and if you click on the share icon, you see the canonical URL of the page. So, and let's see how a publisher can actually serve an AMP. So go to this page, which is in this case the Guardian. So this is not an AMP page, this is the normal Guardian page. But if you look at the source code, you will see that somewhere they have, you probably won't see it because it's way too small. So there, okay. So you will see a little link tag marked with AMP HTML. Wow, okay. There was a bit of a delay. Okay, but now you really can see it. So this is a link marked as AMP HTML, which references the AMP version of this article. So if we click on this one, we see more or less the same content, but this time we see an article written in AMP HTML. And we see it has more or less the same features. So you have a menu, which obviously doesn't work as well on desktop. And if you look at the source code, you will see here at the top the bit that says that this is an AMP page. And then most of the parts are normal HTML tags you would use in any other HTML file, but there are also some custom elements. And as you see, this is not really helpful. Let's have a look at a simpler sample. So here's the smallest AMP HTML file possible. So you see there's a few things you have to do. So you have to declare at the beginning of the HTML tag that this is an AMP file, so you can either write AMP or use the lightning bolt icon. And so this basically tells everyone, okay, this is an AMP page. And then you have to declare a viewport. Here's an interesting bit, so you have to include a bit of boilerplate, which is responsible for one thing. So AMP relies on web components. And web components can only be rendered if JavaScript is enabled. So if a browser and user agent hasn't got JavaScript enabled, web components won't be rendered. And to ensure that still content is visible to the user, even though JavaScript is enabled, this is basically animation, which will start so initially you open the page, everything is hidden until basically the runtime framework is set up. And then everything is going to be displayed at the same time. To make this work with JavaScript disabled, basically this is an animation which takes a certain amount of seconds, which then after this time will show all the content. And basically the AMP runtime, once it's loaded, will stop this animation from happening. So this is a simple way that ensures that even if there's no JavaScript available, you can at least see the basic content, like, for example, text and images. And then the other bit that you need to do is you have to import the AMP runtime. And this is the only script you're allowed to include. And this is like one of the big constraints in AMP. You're not allowed to run any custom JavaScript. So this is one of the ways AMP achieves its performance. It basically says, so you can only use trusted components that are part of the AMP project. And these components are implemented in a way to ensure that they load as fast as possible. But of course, this means you can only implement use cases that are supported by the AMP components. And so I will talk about this a little bit later. So this can seem limiting at first, but when you start combining these two, it's actually possible to create quite complex experiences. And then here we've got an inline style block. And this is another specialty of AMP. You're not allowed to embed external CSS files. So all the CSS must be defined inline. This is, again, to avoid another request while the page is loading and to ensure that the page can render as fast as possible. Also, there's a limit to how much CSS you can use. I think it's around 80 or 100 kilobytes. I don't know the exact number. It can be a problem if you've accumulated quite a bit of CSS over time. But usually it should be fine to create a very complex website with this. And then you've got, in the body you can use normal HTML tags, for example, like here headers. But for other HTML elements, there's the custom AMP replacement. For example, the image tag. So you're not allowed to, for example, if you declare a normal image tag, you will see that there is that validation errors appear. And this is quite a specialty of AMP, is basically the runtime has a built-in validator that checks whether the current AMP file is valid HTML. This is to ensure, like when it's embedded somewhere, that you can make sure, okay, it's valid AMP, it's going to load fast. So in this case, if you embed an image, you will see that it says the tag image may only appear inside of a NoScript tag. So for example, in this case, this means you can't use normal image declarations, but instead you have to use the AMP image tag. And let's import an image. And then another specialty of AMP is that it has a static layout. This means, when probably everyone has seen this already, if you load a web page, then you start reading somewhere, and then an ad loads above the part you've been reading, and then suddenly the page jumps. And then you have to scroll back until the next bit has been loaded, and content jumps again. And it's a terrible experience, and this cannot happen in AMP files because the whole layout is static. So it's basically possible to calculate in advance how much space everything is going to take. This means at the same time, for certain components like images or embeds, you need to define in advance which size they have. So here, in this case, for the image, we have to define its dimensions. This case, it's the width and the height. Unsplash. That's going to make things so much better. So you will see, this is an image. So, and you're now probably gonna ask, like, why isn't necessary to replace our good old HTML image tag, which has served us quite well for a while. But so the thing is, like, one thing it does is it loads images asynchronously. So this again makes the page load faster because, for example, you can read text on the page even before like images are rendered and things like that. And the other thing is you can add additional features. For example, one thing I really like is you can add placeholders. So if you add, for example, an arbitrary element inside and you give it an attribute called placeholder, the placeholders are possible. These will be shown while the element is loading. In this case, I want to show a fallback. This means when a resource couldn't be loaded, it's going to display the fallback instead. So, for example, if I break the URL, you will see the fallback element is going to be shown. And this is really nice, for example, if you want to build an offline experience. Like if you're, like one common way to ensure that, for example, if you build an offline experience using service workers, is basically you write a custom fetch handlers for image requests, which returns a dummy image if the image is not available in the cache. You can avoid all this in AMP by simply providing a fallback element. And there are quite a few more features in AMP images, like you can render different images based on viewport size, and you can provide different image resolutions using source sets, things like that. So it's very powerful. It's actually quite a bit more powerful than the normal image element. And so this is, and here's another sum. So if you're now concerned that if a user loads a page without JavaScript enabled, and as it's a custom web component, the image is not going to be rendered, you can, for example, provide a NoScript element. And in this side the elements, you can declare an image, which will then be rendered if no JavaScript is available. This is also a good trick if you're implementing an AMP page and you want to ensure that crawlers which haven't got a Java interpreter, which are not using a Java interpreter, that these are also understand your page better and also recognize the images. So this is a really simple component. Now let's have a look at a little bit more complex one. So for example, a carousel. So if you want to implement an image carousel inside your web page, it's in AMP very trivial because you can't implement your own carousel because you can't use your own JavaScript. So what you have to do is you have to use the carousel component. And how you usually would do this, you would go to the official documentation or AMP by example, which is basically a collection of all different components. And for each of the components, you see code snippets with the matching samples. And I'm just going here because each component needs to be imported separately. And you have to add the import inside the header. So here I'm going to add the AMP carousel decoration. And then once we've imported it, we can start using our component here. So let's declare an carousel, and so the type should be slides, and we have to again provide it, like define the dimension of the carousel. So here we're going to say it has the same dimension as our image. So it looks like there's somewhere.
Do you want splash?
No, I forgot to close. So the thing with custom web components, you always have to provide a closing tag and of course the correct link. Let's use a different image here. And you see, we now have a more or less working carousel just by using a custom component. And one interesting bit I forgot to mention earlier is that each of the components, they support a certain set of layouts. So let's go back to the original image sample. So in this case, here we have define the fixed dimensions. We can also make the image responsive by defining a responsive layout. So we see now the image is going to fill the full viewport, and if you change the view size, it's automatically going to resize. So there are other layouts, for example, a fixed height one, which can be very useful. In this case, we don't need to provide a width. So these layouts make it very easy to create a responsive layout using AMP. So this is just to give you a basic idea of how AMP works. It's so basically it's the way you use it makes it very easy to build a web page with AMP, because it's basically you take the existing component, configure them, and then put them together to create a whole web page. And because these components are quite flexible and interoperate quite well, it's possible to actually create quite complex web pages with it. And this is basically the next part of my talk I want to focus about is talking about basically how you can, like giving an example how you can create a really interactive website using just this simple AMP components. And this is for, like, I don't know if you've at the beginning when AMP got introduced, it was mainly focused on static for static websites like news articles, blog posts, and things like that. But since then, the format has evolved quite a bit, and now it's actually possible to build really interactive web pages. And like a while ago, I wanted to see what's possible if you really push the limits, and I thought, like, what's the crazy thing you can build if using AMP? And I thought, okay, let's see if it's possible to build a fully functioning messaging app in AMP. And so I wanted to do three things. So first thing is it should have a live message stream. Like you should be able to see, like, send messages and directly receive incoming messages. It should have a dynamic UI, so it's like, what you don't want is, like, every time you send a message, like, fire up a new request which loads a new page. So it should be really interactive and fast. And then finally, it should actually be a proper progressive web app, and like should have offline support and even support push notifications. And you have to remember all these things without custom JavaScript. And no iframes. So this used to be like at the beginning of AMP, when the features were still quite limited. So whenever someone would come to me and ask, like, how can I embed this in AMP, the answer would almost always be, yeah, you have to use an iframe for this. And it's quite flexible, but at the same time, the experience is not as good as if you're using the native AMP components. So let's take a look at the first bit, like how would you implement a message stream in AMP? So you see, like, you should be able to receive messages and send messages. And like, if it comes to pulling in, updating the page with new content, there's basically only one choice you have. And there's a component called AMP Live List. And it's meant to be used for live blogs you find in newspapers. So articles that describe an ongoing event, And so basically, whenever new updates come in, the page directly updates. And so we could use this to implement a live stream with incoming messages. And so basically how it works is you define a certain part of your website which is declared as live updating. And then the component will periodically pull your server for new content. And if there's new content, it's going to replace the content of this tag. And the minimum frequency for this component is 15 seconds. And this is basically as good as we can get, like with our message teams. So you will have to wait 15 seconds until you receive a new message. It's not possible at the moment to get any better, but I'd say it's better than nothing. And like the other bit of our message stream is like the field where you can compose new messages, and this is again different component you can use. It's called AMP form, which wraps the normal HTML form and provides some new features. For example, you can directly send form inputs to your backend using XHR requests, and then, for example, can update the page based on the response to this request. So using these, we can receive messages and we can send messages to the server. So we have one problem, is the 15 seconds delay. So when you compose a new message, you send it, then you have to wait 15 seconds until the stream updates and you see your own message that you've sent yourself, which is not really what you're used to and could be quite frustrating. But you can actually fix this by basically moving the whole form inside the live list. And then you basically have two sections inside your live list. The first one, which will be automatically updated whenever new messages come in. The second one, which will update it when when a form response comes. So this means whenever you send a message and a successful response comes back, we're going to hide the initial content using CSS based on an additional attribute. It's called AMP form submit success. Then basically the previously shown messages are going to be hidden, and all the new messages, like the updated messages, including the one you've just written, are going to be rendered based on the form response and a separate form. So it's actually it sounds maybe a little bit more complicated than it is, but it's actually quite simple and straightforward to implement. However, there's only one downside with this approach, which I noticed after a while. So you start composing your message, and then it takes a little bit longer. And while you're writing, a new message comes in, which means the whole AMP live list content is going to be updated, including the form input field you've just been writing in, which means the text you've been writing is going to be deleted, which is very frustrating. And in order to fix this was actually a little bit harder. So what I had to do is basically create a second form component outside the live list, and then basically you can define an AMP actions that are performed, for example, when a form is submitted. So in this case, once the form has been successfully submitted, so it means the message has been sent to your backend, it's going to submit another form which is inside the live list, which is then going to pull in the updated message list. And this is now where it starts getting a bit hacky. And this is nothing I would recommend anyone to do, but I think it demonstrates quite well that you can accomplish quite complex behavior by just composing these components and making use of their interoperability. And the other bit you have to think about is this is implemented with 0 lines of code. And this is, at least in my book, this is a good thing, because the less JavaScript code you write, the less likely you are to create bugs. But still, I wouldn't recommend you to build your next messaging app in AMP. That's probably a terrible idea, but it's more like a demonstration of what's possible. And now let's get to the next bit, creating a dynamic UI. So here what you see is when you have a list of messages, you click on one, not a list of messages of different chats, you click on a chat, and then basically the chat content slides in, you click on the back button, other content slides out. So this is normal behavior you would expect from a single page application, but it's also possible to create this using AMP. So, and the way it works is a brand new component, which is actually quite powerful, and it's called AMP bind, which makes it possible to have like internal state inside your web page, which can be arbitrary data, and then basically on user interaction you can update the state and change the UI based on bindings on your data. In this sample, how it works is, so we have these two different view sections. We have the chat list and the message list. And I hope you can read it. It's basically the visibility is defined using CSS, and we bind the CSS classes using bind expressions based on a variable called active chat. So, and if there's no active chat defined, we're going to show the overview list, and if there's a chat defined, we will show the corresponding chat view. And then the interesting bit is like when you select one of the chats, you can define an on-tab action on a button, which will then update the state. In this case, it will set the active chat variable to a specific number. And when you when you press the button, this expression will be this action will be performed, and the bindings and all elements will be updated, which will then change the views by using simple CSS transitions. So using AMP bind is makes AMP pages a lot more powerful, and this also makes it feasible to create more complex web pages in AMP. For example, like e-commerce pages where you have to configure a more complex, where you have to configure a product, like you're choosing different sizes, colors, things like that. So this is a dynamic UI, and finally, I wanted to turn this into a proper PWA. So first thing I want to have is like that you can add it to the home screen. So I don't know if you've seen this on an Android device. It's Chrome provides a way that shows a dialog that enables you to add your application to the home screen. And then when you can launch it in standalone mode, just like a normal, just like a native app. And there are a few things you need to do. So the first thing is you need to provide a manifest. That's a JSON file that needs to be on your website. And it declares like the name of your application, logos, start URL, and color theme, things like that. And the other thing you need to provide is a service worker. And the service worker it's basically a little script that is running in the background and makes it possible to enable other features like push notifications, but also like offline support by intercepting requests that would fail if there is no network connection. And AMP provides a component you can use to install service workers. So using these two elements, it's quite easy to support the add to home screen dialog. But it's also possible to add push notifications. And to add push notifications, there's like one tricky bit in AMPs, because you need to run a custom bit of JavaScript which enable the push notification permission dialog. And this is something that's currently not yet supported by AMP. And at this point I had to trick a little bit, because what I did to make this work is whenever the AMP page is loaded via a service worker, I'm intercepting the request and then enhance the AMP page by adding a tiny bit of JavaScript which enables behavior to enable the push notifications. Now this is like, now you might wonder, but doesn't this make the AMP page invalid? We've, like, as I said earlier, it's like AMPs have a built-in way to validate, to ensure that their pages are valid AMP HTML, and only pages that are valid AMP will, for example, show up in the Google top news story carousel or in the Google search in Google search results as AMPs. But in this case, this is not really a problem, because the service, like when the Google crawler indexes your AMPs and discovers your AMPs, it doesn't run a service worker. So it always will discover the valid version of your AMP, but only if you load the AMP directly from the publisher origin in your browser and you've got a service worker installed. In that case, you will get the enhanced version, which makes it possible to provide additional features to the page. So it's actually absolutely okay to use this approach. Yeah, and basically using this approach, you have push notifications for our AMP page. So you will get notified when a new chat message arrives, and this then directly opens inside your app. And this also uses the Chrome's new Add to Home Screen dialog. So the way it works is when you trigger the Add to Home Screen dialog, and I think this came up with Chrome 59, is it's gonna build a custom APK for your website, which is then going to be installed on your phone. And this makes it possible that you, for example, if you search for an app, it will also show your website that has been added to the home screen. So this is a really, really great feature that's now in Chrome. So taken together, it's definitely possible to create more complex websites using AMP. So we've been able to implement a live message stream, which was a bit hacky, but it's possible. But like, it's definitely possible to create a complex dynamic UI, and you can even turn your AMP page, if you want this, into a progressive web app. So yeah, I can actually give you a quick demo of the app. So let's see, let's go into mobile mode. So you can sign up. You can create a new chat. You can zoom into the chat. You can write messages, and you can invite others. And the way it works is you share an URL. And for this to work, you need to create a new tab where I enter the shared URL. Need to create a new user, and then you see the chat is already populated. And you can also send messages, and then here we see we have to wait 15 seconds until the new message arrives. But it works. So this is just a simple sample of what's possible with AMP. This isn't available as open source yet. That's something I have to do, and I'm hoping to finish in the next few weeks. So you can also then be able to take a look at the source code. Yeah, but that's it with my presentation. So I hope, on the one hand, you got at least a quick introduction into AMP and how it works, but also an overview about what's possible with AMP if you get a little bit creative in the way how you use the end components. So now I think we have a bit more time for a few questions.
What's the analytic? So if there's no JavaScript, how is there some mechanism like that?
So the way it works, there's of course a component for analytics, which basically enables you to configure arbitrary requests which include document-specific data like a user ID, referrer, URLs, document URL, things like that. And of course, most of the major analytics providers provide specific configurations for this component so that you just say, okay, I'm analytics for Google Analytics, and then you just provide your account number, things like that. So it's most of the main analytics providers are covered, and yeah, like some really advanced tracking things that track certain behaviors on pages are not supported, but like many things are. Thanks.